My name's Martha, and I'm a tour guide here. And just to give you a little information about the house, this home was built in the 1870s by Mr. McKnight. And Mr. McKnight is kind of a big name in the Senoia area. So this is a picture of him. That's what he looked like. So around 1870s. The floors that you'll see in the house are original to the house. And one of the unique things is this front door is the doorbell. So, you know, we all have a Ring doorbell or, you know, any kind of types of batteries, but this is a mechanical bell. So when you ring it, but it sounds like this. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
1800s when this home was built. And obviously the first people to live here were the Indians, and specifically the Creek Indians. So they lived here a long time. Our town is honored to be named after a full-blooded Creek woman, Princess Senoia, and it has been shortened over the years to Senoia, but it was Princess Senoia, and she was married to a Scottish captain, William McIntosh. They had a son, and he became Chief William McIntosh, and he's best known for signing the Treaty of Indian Springs that ceded almost 4 million acres of Indian land to the new state of Georgia. Wow. And consequently, they assassinated him for that. The Indians were not happy with that decision, and they killed him, and that kind of started the whole Trail of Tears that we all have studied in school, and moved all the Indians, you know, west of the Mississippi. So we have a lot of information on William McIntosh. He was quite well known in this area. In his day, he was wealthy. He spoke English as well as his native tongue, so he was, you know, very high standing. He built the Rock House, which is not standing anymore, on the top floor of that building. So that's a very interesting story about the Indians.
Yeah.
The other thing that we focus on in this room is the family that actually lived in this house, and they raised 8 kids in this house. And this is their picture. This is Abram and Beulah and their children. And this is a picture of their youngest daughter, Grace, sitting on the railing outside. And this is Beulah out in front of her flower pit. So that's great, and a whole article from Ina May, one of their daughters, about living here. We have a lot of information about the Carmichaels. We have their family tree. We have their Bible. This was her wedding dress. Wow. That she made. And it was worn by her daughter in the 30s and then her great-granddaughter in the 80s. So it's a pretty special dress. Mm-hmm. And a lot of women will say, well, why isn't it white? But before the time of Queen Victoria, not all women wore white wedding dresses. So a woman would have a beautiful gown like this made, and then she could wear it to other events. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Ohio, and we didn't have these because, you know, it just doesn't get as hot up there as it does down here in the South. So we have some of these beautiful fans. We don't have the South Dakota either. This room, this is more mid-century, so say around 1950s. This is when the trains have kind of stopped running. Senoia becomes a very quiet little town. And we have two of their beautiful teller windows. This one, when you would go to the bank, this would be the type of adding machine that you would see. I'm so fascinated by this with all the numbers, the whites and the darks, like how this adding machine ever worked, I have no idea. And then we have some of their checks. And what I just find fascinating about the banking system back in the day is you would go into the bank and they would pull out a ledger, so we have many of them, and in pencil, they would find your name and your bank account. So most of these ledgers look like this, and it's all your name and your account. So pretty trusting. And then the other business that was kind of booming then and still is a company called Southern Mills. They're still here in Senoia. They are now called Tenkata, and they employ a little over 100 people, and they make flame retardant material, and they still do. This was probably from the 50s, and this was car upholstery. Pretty scratchy if you ask me, but that's what they made. We also had some local businesses. We had Sewell's General Merchandise, so we have this beautiful NCR cash register from their store. They sold everything, so that's why we have little samples of Jell-O and crayons and ice cream and shoes. They sold it all. And we also had a peach packing company. We had McKnight's Peach Packing. So this is a peach packing table. There was also a cotton gin. So in this area, it's pecans, peaches, and cotton. And also there's livestock and corn and so forth. On Main Street, so if you were under 12, it was 11 cents to see a movie, and if you were over, well, then 35 cents. So tough. It's really, that's rough. All around it, it's got a clip at the bottom. It's actually for picking peaches.
Yeah.
So what they would do, they would carry these heavy bags, they would fill them with peaches, they would dump them into big barrels, then they would dump them onto this peach packing table and onto the trains. Senoia.
Oh, okay, so that's what
Yes,
that is.
yeah. Her name was Princess Senoia Inaha, and she was a princess in the Wind clan of the Creek Indians. So that was her name. Now Senoia has always been spelled Senoia. So a lot of people will pronounce it Senoia because they're not local. And I learned that because I've only lived here 6 years. So when you come here, you think it's Senoia. This takes us a little bit more into modern day, where we talk about the movies that have been filmed in and around Senoia. The movies, the television shows, and we feature many of them. If you walk up and down Main Street, you'll see these little brass plaques, and that shows all the movies that have been filmed in and around the Senoia area. So this huge projector that you see here was used in the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, if you've seen that. And Fried Green Tomato House is actually here in Senoia. It's kind of adjacent to the United Methodist Church, right across the street from the train tracks and the bridge. So if you've seen the movie, that's where Buddy's trying to, catch the hat, and he ultimately gets hit by a train. So that's right here in Senoia. The Walking Dead, of course, was filmed all 11 seasons here in Senoia. We have a little portion of the wall that blocked off the city, and it's signed by, I forget his name because I can't read it. Movie. It's not about a war, it's about a family, but it's a great movie. just storage back in here. And the board of directors in the last couple years has decided to give us more space in the museum, so that's what we're currently using it for. One thing I'll point out is this really cool map dated 1898, and in exchange for the use for the depot, Mr. Barnes gave the land for the depot. The railroad engineers shaped the town into a grid so that it would make commerce flow easily.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look, here's the train depot, here's the train going through. This is Main Street going up, and if you go up there to the left, see Couch Street?
Yeah,
That's where we are now.
Yep.
So I love this map. I think this is really cool. So we kind of added on to this room, and we are using this for events and for our regular monthly meetings. Every February we do a special exhibit. So this year we did a tribute to the Oscars. And we highlighted movies that were filmed in Georgia, not necessarily Senoia, but Georgia, that won Academy Awards. So we've got posters on the wall. One was Selma, one was The Blind Side, Driving Miss Daisy, Glory, and Forrest Gump, and My Cousin Vinny. They all won Oscars, and they were all filmed in Georgia. So we had a big party in here. We had a movie running with all of the clips of the movie, which I think is up, but it's silent. So this is Denzel Washington getting his. We had a little ticket booth. We had a raffle.
And this was added on?
Yes, yes. They're just painted. The flooring is new, but we tried to, it's a pine, so it goes, with the house. And, yeah, so they spent a lot of time redoing this area. If you're home, we might have that information here that they can look at. So when everybody's ready, I'll move you to the next room.
Okay.
Here at the Brantley Institute that I mentioned earlier. She was also a Sunday school teacher for many, many years. But when her students went off to World War II, they wrote her. And she saved every letter and every envelope. And we are fortunate enough to have them all in this notebook. So these are all the letters and envelopes of the men who went to war and wrote to her. So what an honor. I mean, people don't even write letters anymore. But for them to write to her, and I'm sure she wrote back to them, and that she kept all of it is the most special thing we have in the museum. And these are Georgia land lottery deeds with the authentic leather seal. And you may not be familiar, but Georgia is really the only state that was divided up by a lottery. So if you were a veteran, if you were a widow, you had to fall into a classification, you could put your name into this land lottery drum, which we still have up in Dahlonega, looks like that. And if your name was pulled and you had the $18 fee, which today doesn't seem like a lot, but in the 1870s, that was a lot of money for people. If you had the money, then you were given 202.5 acres of land in Georgia.
Wow.
And during that period between 1805 and 1832, more than 100,000 people got land in Georgia. And these two deeds are from the 5th land lottery that encompassed Coweta County. So we're thrilled to have those.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And this little case kind of just shows other organizations that we have here in Senoia. We have a garden club, we have a Rotary Club, we have an Optimist Club, and of course some of the beautiful historic churches that we have. So please take your time and look through the museum.